in my hiring process, so I've now hired upwards of 100 to 200 people for different roles in my career. And at the beginning, I just did the basic interview thing. That's what everybody else was doing. So that's what I did. And I learned pretty quickly that an interview is actually a very poor way of identifying whether or not someone's going to be a good fit.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder? Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where we play keep, toss, or clone. Keep the winners, toss the losers, and clone anything so good it deserves its own fan club. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Well, let's talk about something that we've all fantasized about at some point: cloning ourselves. That sound interesting? I think there was a movie about that, Multiplicity. It was an older one, but definitely worth seeing. Yeah, I mean, it would be really nice to have another you handling the spreadsheets while you focus on the big picture genius stuff, right? Especially in startup days. Until someone cracks the code on human cloning, spoiler alert, it's not happening anytime soon, except maybe for AI, then you're stuck with you. And something even better, and that is mastering the fine art of automating, delegating, and yes, even eliminating. Today's episode is a must listen for anyone who's ever stared at their never ending to do list. Those never get shorter, do they? And you looked at it and you wondered, is there a better way? And there is. And it starts with those three magic words: automate, delegate, and eliminate. Now, before you start thinking this is just another productivity prep talk, let me stop you right there. We're diving way deeper. Today's guest is a super black belt ultra ninja in turning chaos into clarity. We're talking real strategies to trim the fat in your operations, get you out of the weeds, and finally make your business hum like a well-oiled machine. Think of it as like Marie Kondoing your business. Instead of asking, does this spark joy? We're asking, does this drive profit? If you don't know Marie Kondo, she's like the clean out expert. Does this spark joy? But does this drive profit? And hey, if you ever thought hiring that shiny new executive or pouring tons more into sales or community management could bankrupt you faster than you could say annual retreat, then you're in for a treat yourself. We're breaking down everything from fractional leadership to why hiring the right apprentice can actually cost less than your daily coffee habit, assuming your coffee habit isn't insane. So grab your favorite drink, find a comfortable spot, and get ready to rethink how you run your business. And while you're at it, ask yourself this: if you could clone yourself, what part of your day would your clone handle first? I know mine. Our founder on Tuesday was Hikari Senju, founder and CEO of OmniKey. We explored how generative AI is transforming the advertising industry, from building data driven creative strategies to scaling brand engagement with AI. Hikari shared groundbreaking insights for businesses looking to thrive in the area of AI powered marketing. If you're curious about the future of advertising, this episode is a must listen. And our expert guest last week was Mike Malloy, founder of Malloy Industries. We dove into why fractional executives are revolutionizing the way growth stage companies scale, from solving urgent business challenges to building lasting relationships with the 5x7 rule. Totally game changing. I love that one. Mike shared actionable strategies for CEOs looking to grow smarter, not just harder. If scaling your sales engine is on your radar, then this episode is just for you. My guest today is Will Christensen, founder and CEO of Entrepreneurs Apprentice, a pioneer in helping entrepreneurs and solopreneurs scale through automation and delegation. With over 15 years of experience as a Zapier certified expert and workflow optimization authority, Will shares game-changing strategies to streamline operations, eliminate inefficiencies, and future-proof your business in an AI-driven world. Welcome, Will Christensen. Hey, Will, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Hey, it's good to be here. Good to chat for sure.
Definitely. You built a career around helping entrepreneurs optimize and scale. What inspired you to focus on automation, delegation, just getting rid of all those inefficiencies?
So it's funny, and I say that this is often the first question I get asked when I get onto podcasts. They often ask me, why? What was it that drew you there? And I often have to tell them, my wife would tell you it's extreme laziness. And in to be fair, I have definitely been the guy who like set up 7 different things to domino in just the right way to land the hat on my head kind of thing. Have you seen those videos where he tips over a domino and all of a sudden all these crazy things happen and it pulls down the
Yeah.
sheets on his bed? That's all it was doing. It was just going to pull down the sheets. I'm definitely the guy who, quoting Jurassic Park, sometimes I've forgotten to ask, should we automate this?
Yeah.
Once or twice, maybe every time. So I don't know. I just really enjoy something out of nothing. And I really enjoy new ways of handling the world as we approach the challenges we face in a different way. When I got to the point where it's, wait a minute, I could bring in a robot to do that for me. And before today, the robot was like Zapier. Like you would go online and use this middleware tool to connect those dots. And now I feel like it's way more than Zapier. Like we're at a day and age where a lot can be automated and handed to a robot that couldn't be handed before.
Without a doubt. And it's really exciting and also maybe a little bit terrifying.
Yeah, totally depends
what
on
that future looks like. But
well,
I think it's pretty exciting though.
Scott Galloway, and I don't know if he was quoting somebody else, but Scott Galloway said, it isn't going to be AI that takes your job. It's going to be somebody who learns to use AI better than you who
Yep.
takes your job. And when you look at it through that angle, through that lens, it's the same as bicycles. It's the same as computers. It's the same, like when you think about the world advancing through technology, yes, AI is a pivotal moment in history in terms of the things pivoting, but so was the computer. So was the cell
Absolutely.
phone. So was all of these different things. And as the people adopted that technology, it literally just helped them go a little faster than they did before. Now, this may be a lot faster than they did before, but it all on its own, I don't think that's going to be what takes people's jobs. I think it's going to be people who've learned to use AI better than you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good assessment. And there's so much that can be done now with AI. And just taking that knowledge, and anytime I want to know something, just go ask, and the answer's right there. And then I get a few more questions. Hey, would you like to know about this? And it's easy to follow that rabbit trail.
And with Perplexity, we were just talking about this before we started recording.
Yeah.
Perplexity is such an amazing platform because for me, it's replaced Google. Like I don't Google search stuff. I actually found myself the other day. I was like, should I Google search this? And I was like, why would I Google it? No. And
Right.
I went back to Perplexity and I typed in what I wanted to see. And it gave me back so much rich information just about what it found in the 18 pages that it consumed before giving me an answer. So they're just lots of examples. Like my wife used to say, you're the best Googler ever, Will. You're so good at Googling. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. She said, you go into a search and you seem to stop halfway through and then shift and you'll change what you're searching for. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm looking at the search suggestions to see if I'm naming it the same way that everybody else would name it. I'm trying to infer based on my problem in my mind is called this. But in order for me to find something, I need the most common way this problem is described or whatever. And I think that's the power of AI. You can put exactly the way you define the problem to be, and AI can say, oh, what's a more common way to phrase this problem?
Yeah.
And I'll go find stuff around that more common way. And you can bet your biscuits, that's exactly what's happening is you're able to abstract the decision-making layers of what's there. So I no longer have to think through what's the most common way people would say that. So now my wife hand her Perplexity and she's just as good a Googler as me.
That's great. I love that. It's a common workflow. Doing a search, and that's your deal is driving out those inefficiencies. And you've done that even in search.
Yeah, even in a simple task like a Google search, abso-flippin-lutely. you've got to tease out, and I ask myself that question all the time. I came up with a framework called 15115. And 15115 is literally my litmus test to decide what to automate and what not to automate. So 15 stands for 15 minutes a day. And then you've got 1, an hour a week or an hour in a month. So there's 3 different timeframes through which things can be repeated: daily, weekly, monthly. So if the task you're doing is more than 15 minutes a day, more than an hour a week, or more than an hour a month, that's probably something you should consider. And where I got that math was I worked back and said, okay, how much time does it need to take in order for it to be monetarily positive for this to be automated over the next year? And I worked back into those numbers to figure out average entrepreneur, what would that take? Or how would we pick that apart? So that's where the 1511 comes from. And then the last 5 is on your sticky note that you wrote, 15115. You write down those things that were more than that amount of time each week, day, or month, and you put a tally mark each time you do the task. If you haven't got to 5, do not automate. If you don't get to 5, do not automate. I have been down more rabbit holes that resulted in 0 ROI, automation ROI, because I broke my rule. And I was like, yeah, but this is going to happen a lot. And there's going to be other people signing this. And I don't want to do that manually next week. I could automate this. And I go in and I automate it. And about halfway through, I'm like, crap, I can't actually automate this because I don't know enough of the inputs. I haven't seen it come through 5 times, because what I think the process is right now, it's going to shift dramatically as I begin to work through it and connect those different dots. And so that's the 5 times manually. And then you can be like, okay, it is time to automate, delegate, or eliminate. And that's a book I'm going to write: Automate, Delegate, or Eliminate. Then and only then, after the 15115, then it's time to automate, delegate, or eliminate.
That is a great way to do it, because I've been in that same boat. I think this is going to happen all the time. I should automate this because this is going to be a daily process, weekly, whatever. And after twice, I don't ever do it again. And so I like that. Just making sure, is this really something that's going to be around long enough that is worth automating?
Yep. That's probably the biggest. People ask me, what's the number one reason people try automation out and then quit, give up on automation? And I said, the number one reason is because they went on their first date with automation and it ended horribly. In fact, they were like, I am never going on another date with this automation thing ever again, because he left me high and dry without any ROI. There was no win. And I found that the reason for that is because they either chose something, like they got to the end of it and they were like, sweet, that's automated. And then it never happened again. And it was like, okay, remember, 15 minutes a day, an hour a week, or an hour a month. If it's not going to be a repeating thing that happens on the regular, you should not be automating it. That's the whole point of automation, is that it saves you time. So remember that part. Or they found this ginormous, hairy process and they tried to go automate and they got about a third of the way down the path and stumbled, or they turned on the automation and it fired off an invoice to a client at the wrong time and they got fired. And they were like, oh, no, I am not automating anything ever again. That crap gets me fired.
Yeah. That's a big one, that is trying to do too much at a time. This is another one that I've struggled with, and see if there's something, and that is have a process, and it is something that you're going to do long term. And so you create the perfect process and then you automate that, but you haven't done it enough times to really get the bugs worked out. So you're having to constantly go back and change the automation because you didn't do it manually a whole bunch of times to really know what it was you wanted that end product to be.
Yep. So I tell people, when you're going to automate something, there are 5 or so questions you need to ask. Where's the data now? Where does the data need to go? What needs to happen to the data in between? What triggers the process to start? How often does this happen? If you answer all of those questions and then go put that into an Upwork post, you will find somebody who actually has read through it. Now, and if you want, so I have a podcast called Automation Hunter. It's at automationhunter.com. About 2/3 of the way down the page, I have a 45-minute free tutorial on how to hire somebody on Upwork. So don't just go hire somebody on Upwork. Please, I'm hoping nobody just clicked off when I said go hire somebody, because it is the fastest way to lose $2,000 that there is and not get anything back. That's not a scam, but it is a scam, but it's not. So like for surezies, if you're going to go hire somebody on Upwork or any other freelancing platform, recommend that video that kind of goes through all of those steps. But that kind of goes back to automate, delegate, eliminate. Yes, if you haven't done it 5 times manually, if you haven't gone through and seen what the inputs look like, where's the data now? Oh, the data's over here. That needs to go over here. What needs to happen to it in between? You don't know the answer to what needs to happen to it in between because you haven't done it enough times manually to know the answer to that question.
That was really smart. Yeah, save a lot of time and frustration.
Yep.
Just doing that very simple thing.
Yep. So it's a powerful way to pick apart where you want to go in your journey and actually create something that actually has impact on your journey, on what you're trying to do.
So if we are looking for additional help, whether it's Upwork or other ways, fractional is certainly an option.
Yep.
You have quite a bit of experience in that. Tell me a little bit about Fractionals United.
Yeah.
And what inspired you to create that community?
Absolutely. So I am the co-founder there. The original creator, I joined her about 6 months after she got in there. Karina Mickley is her name. And Karina got involved with this whole idea of trying to figure out what that would look like and where to go next and everything there. She basically said, as a fractional, I need additional work. And on top of additional work, I need community. I need to find somebody out there who's just uniting all the fractionals. And she searched and searched, and there wasn't a community for her to join. And she was like, no way. Nobody's made a community for fractionals yet. And this is about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And it dawns on her, this needs to happen. So she went to her husband and she was like, I think we're going to start a community. And they did. They dove in head first and started in January of 2023. And about 6 months in, she was like, man, Will, I'm trying to figure out how to make this monetarily solvent and sell these advertising things. And I'm not good at that. And I was like, I know a guy who's really good at sales. And she was like, would you want to be involved? And I was like, oh yeah, let's talk about it. And so we figured out a deal together that made sense. And I joined her as a co-founder, and we have pushed hard on connecting fractionals with sponsors and making that a community where it can flourish. There's 12,500 people in the community already.
Wow.
It grows by 600 people every single month organically. We're doing a little bit of LinkedIn outreach to invite people to come and check it out, but mostly people are inviting their friends and other fractionals who are out there in the world. And so if you're not familiar with a fractional, these are individuals who have tons of experience in a given area. For me, a chief automation officer would be a perfect example of a role that I could take on inside a company. What I learned was a lot of those companies can't afford me all by myself. Like they just don't have the startup's too small to afford a chief automation officer of my caliber. I've got 10 years of experience and lots that I've done. But if I divide my time between 3 or 4 or 5 different companies, I can charge each of them a retainer, and everybody wins because everybody gets a piece of my time. And so I fractionally work as the chief automation officer across multiple businesses.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love the whole community aspect as well, because especially if you are working fractional, then you're maybe less connected to the companies and just the everyday environment and culture. And so this really gives you a place to come and spend time with other people that are just like you.
Yeah. It's a really powerful way to, when you want to know what billing system works the best, go ask in the community.
Yeah.
How should I close more deals? All of those different questions are being asked every day, and people are getting help from other community members and sponsors who are wanting to connect with those individuals and make stuff happen.
That's very cool. So what types of people are part of the community, or what types of roles are there fractionally?
So Fractionals United is a community that's focused on fractional leaders. And a fractional leader is someone who has 2 to 3 years of experience and have had some direct reports. That's the minimum requirement we put out there around if you're going to call yourself a fractional leader and be part of our community, you've got to have that. So the entire community, all 12,500 people, have leadership experience and some sort of disciplinary understanding of a different vein of business. So everything from fractional CFOs, like finance, all the way to automation officers, all the way to fractional COOs, right? From operations,
Yep.
CMOs, all across the board. We see it spread all over the place. Lots of fractional CMOs, lots of fractional COOs. Those are probably the two most common, but followed closely by many of the others. And I find that people, so like I can serve as a chief product officer, I can serve as a chief go-to-market officer, right? There's lots of different places or hats that I will take on inside SaaS companies or the like when they hire me to go in and help with that.
That makes a lot of sense. And recruiting is something you spent a fair amount of time doing as well, and including making sure that you have the right person and going well beyond what I would say traditional recruiting methods and doing some blind tests. Can you talk a little bit about how that process works and maybe some advantages?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of different things that I would say in my hiring process. So I've now hired upwards of 100 to 200 people for different roles in my career. And at the beginning, I just did the basic interview thing. That's what everybody else was doing. So that's what I did.
Right.
And I learned pretty quickly that an interview is actually a very poor way of identifying whether or not someone's going to be a good fit. And I dug into that even more, and they've done Harvard studies on interviewing as a process, and 25-year veterans, like people who best in class HR director kind of individuals, were biased against anybody who was more similar to themselves and would often choose that individual over the most qualified candidate. And so they would have an interview before the interview where somebody would say, okay, this is the most qualified candidate, but this guy doesn't know it yet. And he interviews against that position and he would choose, and he often wouldn't choose he who was most qualified. He would choose he who was most similar to himself. And so
Interesting.
naturally, we as human beings, our core need is to belong. We must belong. And if we belong and we feel loved and we feel wanted, we're pretty happy. There's a lot that goes into our happiness around that. So naturally, when we hire people who are going to work with us often, we want them to belong. And so how do they
Yeah.
belong? If they're more like me. And so
Yes.
all of a sudden you start bringing in people who are more similar to you, and what you really needed in that instance was your opposite, right? Was somebody else who did it differently than you. And so for
Yes.
me, I developed all of this while I was trying to clone myself.
Ready to dominate your market and skyrocket your revenue? Dive into Small Fish Big Pond, delivering a world class business that swims circles around competitors. This book is packed with powerful marketing and leadership insights guaranteed to transform your business and operate world class. Small Fish Big Pond delivers proven strategies to sharpen your marketing message, deliver unmatched value to your clients, and guide your prospects' buying journey to one inevitable conclusion: that your company is the only solution for them. Inside, you'll find step by step frameworks and time tested growth principles to attract your ideal clients, convert them, and then turn them into your passionate brand ambassadors. Grab your copy today in print, ebook, or audio at smallfishbigpond.com or on Amazon. Plus, remember, every book sale supports charity. All profits go there. Always have, always will. So dive in and make a difference. And so, how do you do that where it's blind? How do you get rid of that bias, and do you find that right person instead of picking the person that's most like yourself?
Perfect. So when I went out looking for a clone, because that's what I thought I needed,
Yeah.
and my first 4 or 5 apprentices, this is 4 years ago, I was bringing on apprentices and they were lasting like 2 or 3 months. And it was like, wait a second, I need an entrepreneur's apprentice who's going to dive in with me and work hard. And so I started to develop a series of tests, and I did them around the aptitudes that I was looking for. So one of those tests, and this was based on personal experience, I had an individual who I was on the phone with, and we were walking through a website. I can't even remember which website. I said, go ahead and share your screen. And they shared their screen. And I said, okay, now go ahead and log out. And they were like, where, how do I, I don't see a log out button. And I was like, oh, okay. So there's a round profile button somewhere on the screen. Like I could be blindfolded and there's a brown profile button somewhere on the screen. If you click on that, it'll have a button in there somewhere that says log out. Oh, okay. And I realized I cannot be teaching people how to log out. I need an aptitude that is higher than that to figure that out. And so I developed a blind test in that I would ask them, hey, here are 7 different applications that you might work or use with a mentor in entrepreneurship. Score them 1 to 10 for your familiarity with each of them. Now, when someone answers a question like that, what do they think I want to hear?
Probably how good they are with the applications they're going to be using.
And what makes them look better, a higher score or a lower score?
An honest score.
Yeah, an honest score. I agree with you. But when you look at the word honest, it's relative. And the reason it's relative is because it's through our own perception. So
right. It's how good they think they are.
So I don't know if you've ever had that situation where like you rated yourself scale of 1 to 10 on how good you were at something. And then you went and talked to your spouse or your brother and they rated you and there was a grand disparity between the two. Sure. A big part of that is because we are naturally going to inflate the perception of us. We're always going to show ourselves in the best light possible.
Right.
What people don't realize is that when I'm designing this technology test, the next part of it is I choose the 3 that you scored yourself the lowest on. So you could have put a 4, have anything less than a 4. And because you went and Googled it right after I sent it to you, you were like, that's a 4, right? Yeah. So whatever you scored the lowest, doesn't matter how high you scored them. I don't care about that scale. What I care is what's at the end. And so I choose those 3 applications and I give you a test and I say, hey, here's a business scenario. There's a florist. They're taking orders over the phone and they got a yellow notepad and the orders are coming in too fast and they can't keep track of all of the orders. The phone's ringing too much. Build them a form where the individuals can put in what they want and even get a text message that says, hey, I've confirmed I have your order. Go ahead and come in and pick up and pay for it at such and such a time. Go figure that out. And so if they said they were familiar with Zapier, we're going to tell them to go do it on Make. If they said they're familiar with Make, but we're going to make them do it on Zapier, right? Because we're trying to discover how do they consume that new piece of technology? We asked them how long it took to do it. And then we created a rubric because here's the other part of the bias. Do we want anybody to fail?
No.
Never. In fact, we're terrified of failure. As human beings, that's something we do not want. And so
you're right.
When you look at candidates, and I interview 3 candidates, do you want any of them to fail? No.
I mean, I desperately want them to be successful.
You desperately want them to be successful. So you're telling me that you're going to be a good arbitrary judge as to whether or not this person is successful or not, or going to be successful or not, but you're desperate for them to be successful.
Yeah.
Are you going to look at that through a lens of this must be successful? So in order to remove those biases, you create rules and rubrics. So when someone does a tech test for us, there are scores or points that we assign them for the actions they take, not how we feel about it.
I like that.
So if they respond to the text message within this period of time, that's 1 point. If they don't respond, that's negative 1 point. And so the points, then we say, okay, how do we feel? What's the score? Is it 8 out of 10? Is it 7 out of 10? What's the threshold? If they don't hit this score, they don't qualify. And guess what? All 3 of the people you interviewed may fail, but it wasn't because you arbitrarily chose to fail them. The system did. And so at that point, you can begin to remove those biases by creating rubrics to eliminate the bias. And when you're developing a test at the very beginning, it's all going to be based on bias. But over time, you're going to see what's there and you can create a rubric that makes it so the score fails them, not you.
And that's really helpful. Even though we don't want them to fail, we probably just saved a whole lot of time and effort and emotional energy on both sides by not making that higher. Because we know if this is a realistic test, we know that they're unlikely to be a good fit for what we wanted them to do, even though we really wanted them to be a good fit.
Jeff, have you ever had somebody you hired and you wished you hadn't?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Okay. Thinking back to one of those individuals, do you wish they had failed that first interview?
Yes. Absolutely.
Desperately,
Yeah.
desperately
It
you
would have
wish
saved us so much, both of
it
us,
would have saved
so much
both of
time
us
and
so
heartache.
much pain, heartache, and suffering
Yeah.
if you had just failed that interview. But Jeff now, who's doing the interview, can't hear from Jeff in the future that, oh, I might want some of these people to fail. It's hard to take that in and recognize
Yeah.
when I recruit, I'm essentially creating, and even at Entrepreneurs Apprentice, only 3% of people who apply to become an apprentice make it into the pool and actually get paired with an entrepreneur.
Mm.
And part of me just, my heart breaks for all of those people who aren't quite there, and they can apply again and there's opportunities to connect those different dots. But what we've discovered is you have to have these specific attributes and aptitudes in order to succeed as an entrepreneur's apprentice. And so we systematically tell 97 people no so that we can tell 3 people yes, so that we can go to an entrepreneur and tell him, guess what? You get a clone and they care as much about this business as you do, and they're going to help you build like crazy. You got sales to do, no problem. You got admin to do, no problem. You got fulfillment you got to do, no problem. They're going to wear the hats the same as you. They're going to stand next to you and be an extension of who you are. And so
That's fantastic.
for us, we had to develop something, because if you talk to anybody who knows me, I have got the biggest heart. Like I want everybody to succeed. I'll bend over backwards to help anybody. Like I have apprentices who have not made it through my tests who were looking for coaching, and I've set aside time to go coach those guys. I don't get a lot of revenue out of that, and I have to limit how much I do of that or my business won't grow.
Sure.
But yeah, even I am susceptible to that. And we ask ourselves that during our team meetings at Entrepreneurs Apprentice. Okay, where are we getting soft? Like, where are we letting too many people through our pipe? And we're not adjusting this to make it so that we're getting the highest qualified candidates possible, because we're biased. We're human beings. We want to belong. We want other people to belong, and we don't want anybody to fail. Until you start looking at yourself 10 years from now when you had to fire somebody and you really wish that you would have failed them on that first interview.
That is absolutely right. Yeah. And sometimes we just want them to succeed just so that the search will be over.
Oh my God.
And yeah,
I hate,
because that's not a fun process.
so I've told people hiring is a very tricky thing, because when you actually go out and say, oh, I'm going to go hire somebody to handle X, Y, or Z, generally you don't ask for that life raft or that buoy to be thrown to you until you're literally drowning. Like you've been treading water
Right.
for a long time. No big deal. You've even
True.
dipped underneath 2 or 3 times and you're like, I got this. I got this. Something happened. A new weight was added to your ankle. A new wave just crashed over the top of you
Yeah.
to the point where you are now drowning. Oh, and by the way, now you need to go find somebody to save you, but you need to do it objectively, meaning you can't just pick the first person that comes along, because if you get in the wrong life raft, you're going to sink anyway. So now you got to be objective. Have you ever
True.
been hungry and gone and shopped at the grocery store?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
Oh, it's a terrible
It's
idea.
a terrible idea. So what you're telling me is I should wait to hire until I really need that person. Wait a second. So you have to remember that even that bias of I need relief has to be set aside in the hiring process, because if you don't, you will end up with somebody who's subpar because you weren't actually evaluating based on their merit and their aptitude. You were evaluating based on your need.
That's so good. As I think about building out teams and really for longevity in the business, and we want them to be around, and that it's that long-term growth and scalability.
Hmm.
What systems need to go with those people? Maybe foundational systems that every SaaS business should have in place to also support that long-term growth and scalability.
So there's two systems that I subscribe to and love and have introduced to several different SaaS companies. One is called Entrepreneurs Operating System. Gina Wickman wrote a book called Traction. That book is amazing. If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend it. It's getting out there now. That's becoming a household name I found in a lot of businesses. If you haven't come across it yet, it literally is an operating system that can shift the way your organization runs in powerful ways. So I
Yes.
love that one. That book really opens up. If you're more of the story type of person, textbooks bore me to death. I fall asleep as soon as I start reading them. There's one
Yeah.
called Get a Grip, and Get a
Oh,
Grip
so
is more
good.
of an auditory. Yeah, it's a journey. It takes you through the implementation of EOS. So that's one thing I would say. The second system that I absolutely love, and I can't do one without the other. They actually marry pretty well. This one is called Four Disciplines of Execution. And they do
Yep.
4DX. That's the acronym. 4DX is a tool that allows you to take a look at how you are building things out and what all of that looks like, and shift where you spend your time. One basic principle: all of us spend 80% of our time focusing on controlling the whirlwind. And I love the word whirlwind is such a perfect way to describe my work
Yeah.
week. Like pure insanity for, oh, there's an invoice and now there's an upset apprentice and I'm just putting out fires. What it says is the business actually begins to grow when you take 20% of your time and you focus on that which matters most. And so they encourage you to set a quarterly goal, i.e., a rock, if you were looking at the EOS
Yep.
principles. The part where it gets really interesting: on a weekly basis, we have a thing called the one thing. And this comes from 4DX. What is one thing you will do this week above and beyond your normal whirlwind responsibilities that will get us a little closer to rock, whatever the rock
Yep.
is? And you've committed to the group that you're going to do that one thing. If you could just do one thing that would make everything easier to get us closer to that. And it's everything from organizing the random thing that you always put off till the end of the month, to automating something new, to all sorts of things. The social accountability of saying, here's my one thing, you actually start making progress on those rocks. Powerful system to implement alongside EOS. And as far as longevity goes, unreal levels of productivity.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. Love that. And just like you said, it's really they call it the wildly important goal. Harvard, it's the BHAG, the
Yep.
big hairy audacious goal. It's the big thing. And then it's taking those lead indicators and really working on what matters related to that one big thing. And
Yep.
it's so easy for us, I think, even as leaders, to get distracted and get to doing a bunch of other stuff and even good stuff and forget about the things that are going to move us toward that goal. If it really is wildly important, we're going to work on it. But it
Exactly.
has to be something that is very specific.
Yep.
Has to be something that we commit to. It's not going to happen by accident
Yep.
or not going to happen in our free time.
Yep. Exactly. And my experience is a lot of times those rocks don't get worked on until the end of the quarter, and by then it's too late.
Right. Yeah.
This is not the reason they call it a rock is because the rock doesn't move without you doing some real pushing and finding a lever and removing barriers and all of the things that come with larger projects. Yeah, that book shifted my perspective on how to set goals and how to hold the team accountable and what to do to create some longevity there.
We also want longevity for ourselves and our team. In your experience, what's the most effective strategy for leaders, whether it could be bigger companies, solopreneurs, founders, to prevent burnout while managing growth?
So, two books that I would recommend: Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
So good.
That book is phenomenal. I warn you, if you have not read it yet, it will cut you to the core. Like you will, if you're open and vulnerable and honest with yourself as you read that book, it'll cut you almost as much as, if not just as much as, Leadership and Self-Deception. Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute. That book right there took me to my knees in not understanding what I was doing to the people around me subconsciously. How I was subconsciously, systematically putting them into a space of, you're an object or an obstacle to be removed from my path. I had no idea I was making people feel that way. And this book opened my eyes to that. And those two things, if you can lead with vulnerability, that will begat vulnerability from those you work with. And as that relationship deepens, you can go through crazy amounts of crap. And the person you are mentoring won't leave you because you've been depositing into that emotional bank account for years. So by the time the storm happens, they're like, oh no, I don't work with anybody but Will Christensen. That guy is a freaking rock star. And I know he cares about me because he's asked me about my kids and he's asked me about, so like developing that real relationship. Those two books have opened some serious doors for me in seeing people as people and inviting them into my space.
So good.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out. That is one that will definitely get.
Leadership and
It sounds like
Self-Deception.
a hard one.
I've read that book probably 5 times, and I'm probably due for another read. It really does open your eyes. I had an apprentice who he was coming off pretty arrogant and having a hard time, and I suggested that book. And he came back to me and was like, oh my gosh, I probably sounded like a prick. And I was like, yeah, you definitely did. And he was able to look at it and say, I couldn't believe how skewed my view of the world was for everyone around me. And he was like, this book changed my life. And I said, yeah, mine too. And the reason it did is because as soon as I began to see other people as people, they began to work with me instead of against me.
Wow. Some really interesting things just about people. I mean, that in itself. And we talked about AI early on, fractional. What do you think the future of work looks like, whether that be remote or fractional or AI related? Will there be work in the future? What's your take?
Oh, I am so glad you asked me this question. I was actually talking to a friend of mine, and I've actually posted this. I need to do like a full-blown episode or something like that on this. I believe parts of the work we do today will no longer be a part of what we do tomorrow. If you think about it, like we no longer have stables where we keep horses. That's because horses were our main, we do have a stable. It's called a garage, and you put a car in it, right? So like we still have a place to house our transportation, but the vehicle changed dramatically. We no longer need hay. We no longer need water in there to do all of that stuff, but we do need oil, and we do need tire pressure sensors and all of those other things, right? Like those are things we're going to get to a place where our vehicle in AI has changed what we do for work so much that we won't need hay and water anymore. We'll have new things that are going on. And so the way that I see, this is my prediction for biz dev. I think biz dev, like business development as we know it today, is going to go away. I think we're like cold email, all of that sort of outreach that's happening right now, I think it's going to go away completely. The reason I think it's going to go away completely is because it'll still exist, but all of the cold emails will be going from one AI to another AI, and those AIs will be filtering. So we will have an autonomous agent who we say, and they have access to all of our meetings and all of our emails. And so they're going to assess what are our biggest pain points right now. And my job is to scour the internet and receive inbound messages from people who have solutions. And my job is to score them and match them up. And so I think what will happen is our autonomous agents will say, oh, that actually looks pretty decent, while they're not complaining about us. I'm sure there's going to be some, oh my gosh, my human is such a pain in the butt. He will not, there's going to be some of that, because
there has to be.
That's what happens. But when they find, oh, this could be a good match, then they're going to have an extra set of protocol where they ask a bunch more questions. And eventually it's, yeah, no, you two should talk. I think we'll find a new place of abundance because the speed at which we can match make, because you think about it, like growth and all of that happens
Yeah.
as matchmaking increases. The economy, the world, we're rising tide, right? I think that the speed at which that tide will rise is going to increase dramatically because the solutions and the problems are going to be matched faster by our autonomous AI agents. And so we'll send them out into the sea of the World Wide Web, and they will come back to us and say, hey, I've met these 4 people, and I think they would all be great. And you'll say, nah, I just want to meet with those top 2. And then they'll go set up that meeting. And when you get on that call, the person's, yeah, I'm ready to buy. I just have 3 or 4 questions.
Right.
Because my AI did all of my basic questions already. I need to know this, that, or the other. So I predict that we will get to a place where nobody's checking any inboxes because there's an autonomous AI agent that is filtering and sifting. And how we actually consume that, maybe there'll be an inbox there. But similar to a virtual assistant, if you have one, my virtual assistant sends me screenshots of emails and I voice dictate back to her exactly what I want said back to that individual. I don't check my email anymore. We're going to a place where everybody can afford an autonomous agent like that. And
Yep.
it's no longer necessary for human beings to have those initial discussions.
Oh, that is really fascinating. But I think you're onto something there.
It's just, you look at an email inbox and the basics of filtering it, like those, that was something that AI couldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Gmail has been trying to do the important, not important email thing for how many years? Right. And they still get it wrong.
Yep.
Like I was like, yeah, this will never actually work. And I finally got frustrated and hired a VA because she would, like, I've gotten to the point now where she doesn't send me any unimportant emails ever. And she rarely misses an important one because we've been working together for a year. And so
yeah.
I have machine learning. She's learned based on experience what not to send me and what to send me. I never felt like a machine was going to be able to handle that. Now, I think we're well on our way to having machines that can understand that nuance. And they're not going to be as good as a human yet. But for some of those basic tasks, like a VA, if you're a VA, again, same thing. It's not going to be an AI that takes your job. It's going to be another VA who became a project manager because they knew how to handle AI better. That's it. That's all it's boiling down to. You just need to learn to use that technology to the greatest, fullest extent.
Oh, absolutely. That's such a great discussion. Where can people learn more about you?
You can find me, so equityhammer.com. The website's actually under construction right now. I'm in the middle of shifting lots of things on there. We're going to be adding a contact form, and it was just a basic, here's a couple of links to old things I used to do. Take a peek there, and if it doesn't look like that's because by the time you watch this episode, we fixed it. But equityhammer.com is a great place to come check me out. Automationhunter.com is a great place to go as well. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel there and hear about new hacks and automation tips, tricks, bounties. We're constantly chasing down new technology and telling you what works best, all of those sorts of different things. And I'm on LinkedIn, so you're welcome to find me there too.
Outstanding. We'll make sure and have your LinkedIn and then Automation Hunter especially. Everybody should subscribe to that and pay attention because it's such great value in a short period of time. I don't know another place that you can get as much great information as Automation Hunter. So everybody should be subscribing to that.
That's been a brainchild of mine for several years now, and we've really started picking up. And anytime I find a new piece of tech that I'm like, oh my gosh, this could change everything, I'm recording that. One, because I want to be like, see, I told you this was going to change everything. I can't just claim, like Fathom, for example, is a really cool automation tool that records phone calls. The first time I saw that, I was like, this is going to be huge. This was like 2 years ago. Like I met with the founder and he was like, yeah, we're a pretty small startup team. And I was like, yeah, but how are you going to maintain this level of value for free? How are you? How? And Richard's his name. He's going to be on the podcast here shortly. We're going to do an episode where we reminisce. We stopped and said, oh, he said, no, the reason I'm going to succeed is because my investors get it, that this is a reach game. Like they get it that
Mm.
like the way we win is by being this platform for everyone. And I don't know if you've seen any of the crap they're doing in there. Like you can ask questions. Like if I have 10 calls recorded with you, I can be like,
Yep.
hey, when was the time that Jeff and I said, and it'll find you that clip,
Yeah.
right? Like just the level of things that you can begin to do once you have the transcript and all of the different things that come with that. So anyway, Automation Hunter is a huge passion project of mine, and keep finding those interesting things. And I'm going to document, hey, I told you this is going to be big. So
Very cool. We'll make sure and link that in the show notes. Such a great conversation. Really appreciate you being here. Thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
yeah, happy to be here.
Thanks again, Will, for coming on the show and sharing your insights and resources. You can learn more about Will and Equity Hammer at equityhammer.com. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. It's at Champion Leadership. We've got full episodes, full video episodes, training, outtakes, shorts, lots more out there for you. Thought leaders, share this episode with your overachiever friends who insist on doing it all themselves, and you know that they could use a little break. Everyone who shares this week gets Eliminate, the app that scans your to-do list and dramatically deletes useless tasks with a satisfying ka-ching sound. Watering the fake plant? Gone. Revising the email draft for 7 hours? Obliterated. Just live the dream. What if your business could thrive by putting long-term success over short-term wins? Join us Tuesday, where my guest is Dan Uyemura, founder of Push Press. He shares the unconventional strategies, hard learned lessons, and cultural principles that transformed his journey from gym owner to SaaS pioneer. You won't want to miss that one. So good. And next week on our SaaS Fuel Expert Series, we have Teresa French. Teresa is an award-winning sales expert and leading authority in the key areas of customer acquisition and business development. As CEO and founder of Cellmark 360, Teresa has creatively combined 25 plus years of inside and outside corporate sales and marketing experience with 2 professional coaching certifications to create one proprietary 360-degree revenue generation system. Absolute genius. So I will see you next time. And as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/saasfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.